Okay. Mic check. Mic check. Yep. Can people hear me in the back? How about if I talk like this and don't project? Okay.
What's the one that camera see that I steal one of these lights, which would be okay to have one little light chip on the straight.
Check.
Hello, can everybody hear? Great.
All right, just say it was like yes. Oh, right.
Good morning, folks. We are not going to wait too much on ceremony because we have a lot to get into, and also we want to make a lot of time for folks to actually have some community discussion about the topics we're on today. Welcome to Saturday morning. You made it. It's all momentum from here, folks. It's all good. Just keep that in mind no matter what disasters you're having at your Airbnb or, all those things. I would like to, firstly, say that this session has graciously been funded through the support of the Northwest Transition to Organic Partnership Program. The Northwest Transition to an Organic Partnership Program, in partnership with Oregon Tilth, is a coalition of partners providing mentorship, technical assistance, and wraparound support for transitioning and existing organic producers. TOP is a program of the USDA Organic Transition Initiative and is administered by the USDA Agricultural Marketing Service, National Organic Program. To learn more, please scan the QR code on the screen, which is actually in that corner. Today, you will hear intersecting perspectives of seed contracts, shared agreements, trust, transparency, and mutual benefit. As presenters, we hope to spark questions and conversations with and between those of you here today. We thank you for bringing your own experiences with the past and current structures of seed work, and also your passion and imagination, as early as it is in the morning, that maybe you can muster that, for what can evolve. My name is Heron Breen, and I'll be playing a dual role today as session facilitator, as well as presenting on behalf of the Informal Seed Worker Organizing Network. I've spent about 25 years working within the retail seed trade, as well as running my own seed production and plant breeding operation called Fool. And we have a little bit of a technical glitch today, which is we have a presenter joining us from Wales in the UK, and we thought that they could be somehow projected onto the screen, and that is not true. So we've been scrambling in the last few minutes to discover that we would love to have Katie Hastings, who is with us from the Gaia Foundation Seed Sovereignty Program, introduce themselves from afar, and I'm going to try to play a trick here. We're going to put Katie on WhatsApp and have her talk through the microphone and introduce herself. So give us just a second. Hold on.
It works great on Wednesday. Here we go. Well done. All right, kids. On. Good. Yeah, you want to do a second and get the microphone. Okay, hold on. Not quite yet. I haven't worked the magic. Okay, try the magic. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Hi, can you hear me?
You're good. Tell us a little
Okay, great. Well,
about your work. Go ahead.
hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Katie Hastings, and I am speaking to you in this strange situation via WhatsApp from the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, but hopefully you can hear me. So, I work for the Gaia Foundation Seed Sovereignty Program, so we're based in the UK and Ireland, and we're working to build a more resilient and diverse seed system. And I'm actually based in Wales, which is in the west coast of the UK. And so we do a whole range of things, which you'll hear more about in my presentation later, which you'll be glad to hear has been pre-recorded, so you won't have to hear me through WhatsApp. We'll do a whole range of things, and we basically run seed production trainings, we run events that bring seed growers together. Here in Wales, I also facilitate a network of grain growers who are working to revive rare grains. And then the thing that's perhaps most relevant to this session is that I also facilitate a seed selling cooperative called the Wales Seed Hub. So that's made up of different growers across Wales selling open pollinated seed collectively. So yeah, I can tell you more about that later, but thanks so much for having me, and thanks so much for making this work through WhatsApp.
Thank you, Katie. We'll check back into after your recordings. Folks will be able to aid with you during the Q&A. So we'll see what happens. Okay. You should.
Whoop, hold on. We are also joined by two folks from Native Seed Search who will be co-presenting, Helena Gonzales and Joel Johnson. Helena, would you like to introduce yourself and the work you do at Native Seed Search?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Helena Gonzales. I work at Native Seed Search as the seed bank manager. So I'm curator of the collection of seeds that we have. I guess I'm glad to be here today. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Joel. I'm the farm manager for Native Seed Search. We're down in Tucson, Arizona, and we'll share a little bit more in our presentation just about Native Seed Search, the nonprofit, the seed bank. We work with a team to grow out the majority of our seed in-house at our conservation center and farm, but we'll also share a little bit today as well about our partner farmer program, kind of what that's like in the past. And also through this work, we're not presenting because we really have this figured out. We're presenting because we're in the middle of like trying to figure it out. And Heron and the Seed Worker Organizing Group has been a huge help for that. So, yeah, we're excited to be part of the conversation and also to just hear and learn from you all as well.
I think following on what Joel was saying is that the ideas that we're sharing today were shaped with different types of goals, but we're all kind of inspired at looking how we can collectively, collaboratively, be more clear about our goals and our intentions in our seed work. Now, whether that's seed work that's for sale or seed work that's for community preservation or both, we've been kind of using some specific seed contract models that, believe it or not, were just kind of made up in the late 90s by some seed companies. One of them I used to work for. And we were all very well intentioned in what we were doing, but overall, some of these concepts have not evolved. Or I should say, they are evolving, and that's what this conversation is about today. So we all here today, Katie, myself, our team from Native Seed Search, we're all inspired by the challenges that we've been seeing. And there was sort of a document that was created by a working group at the Seed Worker Organizing, which I'll share about in a minute, that I think not that folks weren't already coming up with creative ways, but maybe just like nudged us all in a sort of collective consciousness thought process. So it was not that you folks, I know you folks have already been struggling with some, how to make this work, just like seed growers are struggling to figure out how to make this work. So we're kind of all having this conversation, and it was really beautiful to discover that we were all having the conversation over the course of the same 2 years. And so we connected a couple months ago to decide to share this conversation about contracts or just agreements, and also community and trust as kind of one unit. Today, our outline is that each of us are going to have about 15 minutes to present, and then we'll welcome, after those 15 minutes, a clarifying question. A clarifying question is something where you have either not heard something clearly, or maybe there's an acronym or jargon that you want clarified. But if you have like a deeper question or a deeper comment, we're going to try to have at least a half hour of community discussion at the end of this. So we'd ask you to hold those deeper comments to that part of things. Our hope is that we'll have that half hour or more. Before we get into that, I do want to acknowledge that this conversation has something to do, for many of us, about money. And money is a very sensitive topic. Most of us don't like doing our own finances, and we sure as heck don't like other people criticizing how we do our finances or how we run our businesses. But today, we're asking you to be open-minded about things you may hear that may challenge how you are currently thinking, and maybe how you've been treated or how you treat others. and to think a bit broadly and sort of imagine, well, maybe this isn't the solution for me, but maybe something like it I could work on. So it's not about the answer, it's about kickstarting a process. The other part of this is you may hear something today and say, that sounds completely nonsensical. But I would also trust to tell you that everything you're going to hear today is actually already been in practice. So there's actually nothing that is going to be shared today that people aren't applying. You might say you've never heard of it, but I will guarantee you it already exists. So, as we reflect on money, but also trust in relationships, I'd ask you to speak for ourselves and make space for others. Be as present as possible. Be aware of who is missing in each conversation. Remember that no one has a monopoly on truth, and everyone's experience is valid. Critique ideas, not people. Listen to our bodies and tend to their needs. Give some grace for the technical and logistical difficulties we're having today. And aim for connection, not perfection. I think that's the biggest one there, that we're evolving this, and it's not about our ideas today. And you may have things to share that aren't perfect, and that's okay. It's okay to share some things that aren't a complete thought.
Yes.
And with that, I'm going to be the selfish first person to present. Then it's going to be Katie's presentation, and then our team from Native Seed Search. And then this kind of turns into more of a round table kind of conversation with you all and us. All right. Let me see if I can do this the right way. Oh, yes. And this is just a reminder that will be at the end also. We'd love your feedback on this session. All right. Okay, as I said, my name's Heron Breen. Just after the last virtual 2022 Organic Seed Growers Conference, a group of us who had attended decided to kind of start this informal group. We didn't really have a name. We came up with this Seed Worker Organizing, SWO. That's the website address there on the screen. It's a self-organized group of seed growers that are investing in like mutual aid, knowledge sharing, advocacy for fair seed prices and contracts, better seed ethics practices, and agrobiodiversity conservation. As soon as we sort of formed this ad hoc group, within that there was a folks that volunteered to form a working group and start looking into seed contracts that are being commonly used between small-scale seed growers and seed companies. And the working group recognized that the keys to good seed contracts from our perspective included fair and timely compensation, and terms in which risk and responsibility are equally shared between both parties to the contract. There was a revolving membership in this volunteer group because, like all of you, many of us are farmers and seed growers or work at seed businesses, and folks kind of were joined in for 9 months and then had to take a break, and another person joined in. So when you go to that website and look at the document and download it, you'll find that there's a host of names of folks who contributed to this. We also sort of did this iteratively, where we drafted some stuff and shared it with folks who are part of a listserv, part of this Seed Worker Organizing listserv, which you can join through that website, and had people make comments and changed a bunch of stuff. We did that over the course of about a year or so. And then we shared it with folks that weren't part of the listserv, including folks that worked at seed companies, to try to get some feedback from that. And we're still accruing that feedback, and actually today is a place where we hope to get more of that feedback. And so that took us about sort of 2 years before we felt like we had something to present on. Behind the scenes, we kind of realized the value of this started to show itself. At first, we just thought we were kind of talking in a bubble. But we realized that the first thing this document has done is frame shared contract seed language and concepts that seed growers and seed companies can use together. So whether it's in a seed contract development or negotiation stage, or solving a contract problem that arises, or seeking advice from another seed community peer, there's innumerable situations where a common language around seed work can reduce stress, create quicker resolutions, and evolve our collective thinking. We found that beginner seed growers especially benefited from learning shared language and concepts, as there's no formal orientation or education when we start growing seed together. So we come into this and we just start doing it, and turned out that when we started talking to each other, we didn't have any real shared language. So we were able to create some shared language to sort of discuss our problems and potential solutions. So I have a slide up here that is common types of seed contract models. I'm not going to go through them all. This is really believe it or not, a synopsis of what's in the document. The document's 15 pages long. It's a tome. Don't read it all at once. You'll just, but this is, you'll see some names here, and these actually have been pulled out of other types of businesses that use contracts. So like, what are the names that other businesses use for the types of payment structures that we use in seed contracts? And so some of these things like balloon payment, that's a very common phrase being used in contracts globally related to a large payment at the end of a service or product delivery. Segmented payment is another common term being used for creating a structure where partial payments are being made through a service or delivery or product process. Then we came up with some other terms that kind of express some of these subsets, where you have an exclusive contract where that variety can only be sold to one company. Or maybe a non-exclusive contract where you're delivering seed to 3 or 4 different companies and it's a combined model. Or this first refusal mixed model contract where the seed grower and the seed company have agreed on a target volume. I'll get into this little adjusted plant population in a minute. And that the seed company agrees to purchase a certain amount of overage beyond the target volume, but that the seed grower can sell the rest of it to someone else if there's too much. So it's kind of like an exclusive, but not. The first batch of it is exclusive, the rest of it. We're very familiar with some of these things. So we just started naming these concepts and saying, let's name these, because beginner seed growers have no idea. Most of them are coming to us asking, for those of us who've grown seed for a few years, saying, what's a good contract? And we had no language to really educate them or even ourselves about what we were doing. So this is sort of one of those starting points. So this is another element that we found that the document illustrated well. Well, actually, I'm going to pause for a minute and say one of this things is, well, what am I skipping here? Sorry, hold on. Nope. This is basically the concept that that seed contracts are a two-way conversation. And there's so many elements that can really impact success of a seed grower and hence the seed company. So if the seed company wants a good result, they have to maybe make sure that the stock seed is good health, that it's got true to typeness, that there's good germination on the stock seed, that there's some information about the variety and its disease resistance and its needs and, its seed yield. Well, any of the times we're going into this very dark, we're with no information as a seed grower, and that's affecting our success. And we're realizing that, hey, if we don't go in with information, or if we're completely in the dark, we basically have to get paid better, because we're going to be learning on the ground. And so whether we're going to get paid some higher amount because the information is unknown, or that we're going to get paid to gather that information while we're growing the crop, and that's not part of the pound price. So these are some concepts that we're framing. I think seed growers have spent a lot of time basically doing research for seed companies without pay, to put it bluntly. This is another element that we've kind of found is interesting, is different phrases, different ways of thinking about fair terms and prices. So terms such as adjusted plant populations, pilot productions, the purchase of seed production overage, existence or lack thereof of the data we talked about. So all these things kind of go into how would I frame a price? What's a fair price? The document also discusses the when of contract payment and some of this financial risk element. But these two things are interesting terms. Adjusted plant population. This is a concept where I basically say to the seed company, okay, you want me to grow a pound of tomato seed. Well, how many tomato plants is that? And they say, well, I don't know. And I say, we're going to have to guess. Okay? So, okay, 50 plants. I'm like, okay, you're going to buy all the seed from those 50 plants. You know, well, maybe I don't want 50 plants. Okay, whatever amount you want, you're going to name that price, and I'm going to name that amount, and I'm going to tell you the price, and you're going to buy all the seed from what you think equals the contract. I don't want to get penalized for success. So be sure, this is a sort of creates an expectation upon the seed buyer to frame, what do I know about the crop, and to take some financial risk for what they want. And then as a seed grower, it's my job to successfully deliver. Okay? That's one way to look at it. And that creates a way of kind of framing a price, or framing at least like, you know, and you can use this for direct sown crops as well. And then a pilot production is basically a seed production that's never been produced by the seed company or by the seed grower. And this is where you might want to have an even higher price, because you might know some information, but you've never actually applied it. So this is kind of important stuff where we sort of say, someone says, hey, we've got a tomato. We've never grown it. And you go, okay, that should be a big red flag, right, for all of us to say, let's talk about that, you know? So these are like conversation points. Like, hold on a second. I think I skipped a slide. Or maybe not. Either way, I'm going to keep going. Sorry, this is very embarrassing. The facilitator slides are all screwed up. So there's also an element here where there's problems that arise, and the seed production contract guidelines tries to address and create recommendations for areas where problems arise in seed contracts, such as diseased or poor germinating stock seed, not treated type stock seed, poor or non-existing communication. That could be the seed grower, that could be the company. As seed growers, we have a responsibility for some very strong communication, but so does the seed company, and that can cause all kinds of problems. So we try to address these things, and the concept here is that challenging outcomes can be vehicles for mutual understanding and the evolution of better policies and practices for all of us. So every time we encounter a difficulty, how we solve it could be a precedent for how other people could solve it. And how we share that with each other of how we solved a difficult conversation or a difficult outcome is important, and to learn from those things. So we're trying to frame that in this document. The last part is that, let's go to this last slide only because it's just there, is that the seed contracts guidelines remind us that we are all engaged in this work, and that seed quality is a really important thing as a mutual community that we have to have some norms around and expectations around. Basically that when we have a shared understanding around good seed quality, we can work together to further scale appropriate research. That's grants, that's research that we can ask the government or our colleagues in academia to do with us and for us. And also to develop some best practices that we all sort of understand whether we can all adhere to them in every situation. The customer experiences that we each have, expectations and perceptions of seed quality, they can and they will impact our shared marketplace and our shared economy. So it's not just your seed contract. It's not just you as the seed company selling seed or you as the seed grower growing seed. We have a shared perception that we're bringing to the marketplace for the customer, and I can guarantee that if there is a seed disease issue that occurs in organic seed, we're all going to feel it. So it's important for us to mature to the point where we have a conversation about some of these seed quality issues that we often don't talk about. They're like the nuts and bolts. So that's my sort of, these aren't all the things that are in the seed document. There's a lot more to talk about, but these are just kind of like some granular points to say, I'm curious. So go there, check it out. If you want to get involved, we're happy to love to have you. Also love to have you help us iterate with this document. We're looking for more people to keep sort of cracking the nut. And so we have some other folks here that are cracking the nut. Katie is one of them. Let me see if I can get out of this. And we're going to switch to, before I go, does anyone have any clarifying questions before we switch to Katie's recording? And there are microphones, but you can shout, that's okay.
Is the adjusted plant population method you talked about the same as like production of acreage or POA? I've heard that term before.
Production of acreage is a little bit of a different term where a seed company generally agrees to buy everything that comes out of this acre. So it's similar. It's very similar. It's kind of where maybe a breeder company or maybe some seed grower is saying, listen, I'm going to grow Marketmore 76 cucumber from a select strain, but I'm not going to grow less than a certain amount, and you are guaranteeing up front to buy the whole thing. And sometimes that is actually money up front, so there's some money down on that. So it is similar, and I think the two play into a role. I think on our small scale model where we're talking about pound or half a pound or 5 pounds or 20 pounds, we have to get a little more specific, but I think the pound per acreage is something everyone should know about. I think sometimes in our little small scale reality, we don't know how everyone else does things. Even on the large scale, there's things like guaranteed, minimum payments and things like that for large scale contracts.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think about the analog in that art scale would be like a kind of a spirit bed type, that I run into with some of those.
Yep.
That.
Yeah, however anyone wants to imagine it. I've worked with the folks from Saltwater Seeds, and they have quoted me, hey, it costs this much to do a bed of kale seed, for an example. And it doesn't matter whether it's the kale or anything else, that's the price.
Yeah, and I get your question. So somebody just needs to please repeat the question.
Okay, sorry. Cody asked, is bed footage and to seed production relevant to the plant population model? And yes, very similar. The same concept. Okay, I'm going to pause there, and we'll get more questions later, hopefully, discussion. And we're going to move to Katie's presentation. I'm actually going to check in with Katie afterwards. Katie is standing by on WhatsApp.
This is indeed.
Let's see if they make this up. So this is Katie's pre-recorded conversation, and I want to say, Katie knocked us out of the park. Katie recorded this back at the end of January or something. So I'm kind of blown away by this. She set a very high bar, which I'm obviously not meeting.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, maybe not.
Please.
Should damn it.
Audio?
Hello, OSA conference. My name is Katie and I am speaking to you from Wales, which is on the west coast of the UK. And I really wish I could be there with you in person. It would be so lovely to be at the conference. But because I'm on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, I'm actually pre-recording this talk for you, and then hopefully I will be able to attend online live to be able to answer questions and take part in the discussion. So I just want to start by saying thank you so much to Heron, Breen and the Seed Workers Organising Group for inviting us to be part of this discussion. We feel like talking about seed contracts and talking about building a fairer seed system is really important, so thank you for including us. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the work that I do with the Gaia Foundation Seed Sovereignty Programme and kind of how this led us to a point where we created a seed contracting toolkit. I'm going to talk a little bit about the contracting toolkit, and then I'm going to talk about why we think this is important. So yeah, I work for the Gaia Foundation Seed Sovereignty Programme. The Gaia Foundation is a charity, and the Seed Sovereignty Programme has been running since 2017. So we work across the UK and Ireland to build a more robust and resilient and diverse seed system. And we do that in loads of different ways, and I'll tell you more about those ways as I go on to speak. But basically, the Seed Sovereignty Programme was created as an interventionary programme. And the reason that the intervention was needed was that the Gaia Foundation had been working on seed sovereignty, supporting seed sovereignty across the world for about 35 years. And they realised that the situation here in the UK with our seed system and with seed sovereignty, our seed system was built on very shaky ground. We did not have a very strong movement for seed sovereignty here in the UK. So the Seed Sovereignty Programme was created as an interventionary programme to try to solve that and build a more robust and more flourishing seed sovereignty movement. So just to give you a little bit of a picture of where we were at in 2017 when the programme started, we had only 8 small seed companies in the UK supplying market gardeners and organic growers with agroecologically grown seed. And we had only 3 small seed companies in Ireland supplying market gardeners and agroecological growers with open pollinated seed. So not very many people supplying seed here in the UK. And there is a lack of concrete statistics around this, but there is a generally agreed kind of idea that in 2017 around 80% of organic seed was being imported into the British Isles, and that's a generally agreed percentage from seed producers and seed companies. So a whole lot of seed was being imported into the UK at the time, organic seed, and not very much being grown here in the British Isles. And then also, like, potentially more worryingly than that, was this kind of widespread loss of seed saving skills on farm. So as I think with many other places around the world, over the last 100 years, the kind of skills of seed saving had sort of disappeared from our farms and our market gardens, and a lot of our farmers and growers were buying in seed that was being grown outside of the UK, and also like losing the skills of how to actually grow seed and how to actually produce seed. And obviously a result of that is that we were losing a lot of locally adapted regional and traditional varieties as people moved to buying their seeds in from elsewhere. So that was kind of the picture that we began the Seed Sovereignty Programme in 2017. So what have we been doing since then for the last 8 years? We've been doing a whole bunch of different things to try to support a better seed system, but the main one has actually been training. So we started off with a training program because we recognised this lack of skills in seed production, this loss of skills on farms in seed production and seed saving. So we started a training program to re-skill our farmers and growers in seed growing. We started off with some introductory courses, but then what we've actually now developed is a whole year-long seed production training program. So the idea of the year-long seed production training program is that it's for commercial growers, for market gardeners, farmers, and also community growers who are supplying their community with seed. It's not really focused on home growers. There are other organisations who can support home growers, so it's a bit of a larger scale of seed production. And it's a year-long course where we cover a whole range of different topics. So we cover all the practicalities of seed production, like cultivation, selection, harvesting, processing, all of that stuff. But we also have sessions on the politics around seed sovereignty. We talk about seed justice. We still talk about routes to market. So the idea of the year-long seed production training is to really give people like a very broad understanding of both the practicalities and the politics around seed production. And then the idea is at the end of that year-long training, they present a portfolio, the growers present a portfolio of 2 seed crops which they've been growing to their peers. So this is to demonstrate like what they've learned from the course, but also to build like peer-to-peer learning. And they present the seed crops they've grown to one another, and that is them kind of completing the course and able to go on to be able to produce seed for their community and for their fellow farmers. And we also work regionally, so we deliver some of the training sessions centrally online, but we have like regional groups who are taking part in the trainings, regional cohorts. And they get to attend farm visits with one another and meet up together. And so the idea of that is really to like build relationships amongst people taking part in the training as well. So training is like a real foundation of what we do. And as well as training, we do a lot of movement building. So like this kind of kind of in some ways intangible thing where we're kind of trying to build a movement of people who are working for seed sovereignty in the UK and Ireland, who are connected to one another and who want to go on and kind of take this movement forward external to the work that we're doing. So a lot of the things we do with that is like we organise peer-to-peer learning events and meetups so that farmers can build relationships with one another and learn from one another. We also support a lot of community seed initiatives, so community seed libraries, community seed growing projects, because as we support those projects, they obviously go on to work in the community and bring more people into the seed movement and work with more people. And we also, a big part of what we do is we organise celebration events. So we organise celebrations of the work that people are doing to strengthen seed sovereignty here in the British Isles. And we get together, we bring people together, we build relationships and celebrate the work that's being done. And we try to work regionally all the time. So our model is not a top-down model, it's a grassroots model. We respond to what's happening on the ground across the UK and Ireland. So we have regional coordinators in Scotland, Ireland, Wales, Northern England and Southern England. And those coordinators really respond to like what's happening in their regions and the different cultures in their regions and the different seed projects that are happening there. So for example, I am the Wales coordinator, and in Wales I work a lot with older farmers who are seeking to revive traditional and rare Welsh oats. Whereas in contrast, the Northern England coordinator for the Seed Sovereignty Programme, she connects with a lot of community seed projects that are out there working with community groups. And so she really focuses on supporting a kind of community seed movement in the north of England. And we have like differences in the way that we work across Scotland, Ireland, England, Wales, because we're really trying to respond to the bioregions that we're working in and the cultures that are there and what's happening there, rather than kind of give a one size fits all for movement building. So those are two really important things that we're doing, training and movement building. And we've been doing this for 8 years now. And this has kind of led us up to this realization that like in order to build a flourishing seed movement, we really need to turn our attention to having like a stronger and fairer seed economy, because I suppose it's stating the obvious to say that what is the point in training farmers to grow seed if they can't produce an income stream from them in the future? I mean, of course, there's lots of points to doing that, but if they can't produce an income stream from growing seed in the future, like it may not be something that's viable for them to keep doing on their farms. So we really want to build like a flourishing seed economy which can support all of these seed growers to distribute their seeds and also like to earn a profit from seed growing, because that is important to the long-term sustainability, like for somebody growing seed, that it's important that it can be profitable in the future. So we've turned our attention to looking at the seed economy in the UK and Ireland. And one of the things we have done is create a seed contracting toolkit. And the reason for this is that as we were training more growers in seed production, we wanted to see those growers be matched with seed companies and become seed contractors and be able to sell that seed, distribute that seed more widely. But we wanted to really intentionally lay a foundation for kind of a fair and transparent seed system and for fair and transparent seed contracting that they would go into. So we created this contracting toolkit. It was actually inspired by the Seed Workers Organising Group and the work that that group had done to kind of already look at contracting guidelines. So we very much used that as a springboard. And then we worked with a lawyer, Gesine Debal Overson, and a contract manager and professional seed grower, David Price. And together we formed this legally robust contract, which anybody can download. And there are sections of the contract which growers and seed companies can edit and change to suit their needs. And then there's parts of the contract which remain static and the same. So it's a template that can be used to kind of suit your individual relationship with a seed grower or a seed company, but it lays a kind of foundation for what should be included in that contract, and it is legally robust. So I want to say that within the contract template, quality is really important. So the contract includes a lot of agreements around quality, things like population sizes, isolation distances, germination test protocols, agreements around whose responsibility it is for storage, agreements around excluding pesticide use. These can all be edited to suit the individual relationship, but those things are all in there. And the process of kind of identifying these really important quality considerations has really helped us to kind of embed quality at the heart of this expanding production that we're trying to support here in the UK and Ireland. That quality is a really important part of that conversation and those relationships and those contracts. The contract also includes different payment options for growers and between growers and seed companies. So the first option is a balloon payment, which is kind of the more traditional payment option, where the grower is paid for seed on delivery of the seed crop to the seed company. But it also includes an option for segmented payment. So that's where the grower receives different parts of their payment at different points in the process. So maybe at the cultivation point, there's a segmented payment. At the harvesting point, there might be a segmented payment. And then again, at the delivery of the seed crop, there might be another segmented payment. And the point of this option is to look at like how we could spread financial risk out more fairly between a seed grower and a seed company. And really looking at, like how to make seed contracts fair for seed growers. Seed Sovereignty Programme website have a series of short videos between myself, David and the lawyer Gassina talking through the different elements of the contract, and that's available for any seed company or any seed grower to look at those videos, and that kind of talks you through the contract template and how to use it, gives you more information, and that's available alongside the template itself, which can just be downloaded by anybody. So I want to say that as with any contract, this is just a template to build a professional relationship from. And we want to be clear that this definitely does not take the place of like the really important kind of open communication and like real life relationship building that people make when forming contracts. So we hope this template can help with relationship building, and it can form a foundation for relationship building between growers and seed companies, but it's definitely not all that's needed. Good relationships are obviously built on open communication and trust and transparency beyond the pages of this contract template. I think it's also really important to say that we at the Seed Sovereignty Programme, while we really recognise the importance of making seed a profitable endeavour for farmers and growers and for supporting like a flourishing seed economy, that's really important, we also really resonate and believe in the idea that seeds are not just a product, and they cannot just be reduced to a product that we just buy and sell. Obviously, there is so much involved in seed production. There's lineages of people who've stewarded these seeds, there's seed stories and seed histories, and seeds are in many ways like something that is for common good. And we at the Seed Sovereignty Programme, we do really work to honour seed stories, to support seed stewards, and to really emphasise the power of seeds for collective good. So I think what I'm really interested in is this balance between the idea of seeds as this really powerful potential held in sort of common ownership, and then this need for a flourishing seed economy, because we want to be able to pay farmers fairly to produce seed, and we want those seeds to be distributed further to more people. And so I'm really interested in how these two things interact, and I'd really love to have more of a conversation around how seeds for common good and a flourishing seed economy can coexist together. So thanks for listening to me, and looking forward to further discussion.
Okay, we've got Katie on the WhatsApp, I think. We're going to try this again. So if somebody has any clarifying questions that they'd like to touch base with Katie about, I'm going to make that happen.
Let's try out your team for scenario.
Yeah.
Let's try to see if this magic works again. Put that on the phone to them. Okay, go ahead and try. Speak.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Does anyone have any clarifying questions? Go ahead.
My name. And I run a seed library in Napa County, California, and I wanted to know a little bit more about you mentioned different grower types, commercial, community, and market growers, and I wondered where seed libraries fit, and if you could expand a little on those types of growers that your organization serves.
Katie, did you hear that question?
You're going to have to repeat it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll repeat it because she can't hear us on the.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. Lauren was asking about the different types of seed growers that you mentioned, commercial, community, and market. And also, where do you feel seed libraries fall into this work?
Yeah, so at the Seed Sovereignty Programme, we work with a whole range of different growers. So I guess we don't target our training at home growers, but we do work with home growers who are growing rare and, unique varieties. But we also work, like I mentioned before, with community groups, and seed libraries are a massive part of that, yeah. And there is a growing movement in the UK, actually, of community-run seed banks and seed libraries. And they're such an important part of the puzzle because I mentioned the seed selling cooperative that I work with, the Wales Seed Hub. And actually, we get a lot of our unique varieties through partnerships with community seed banks and community seed libraries, because they are the ones who are kind of finding out these rare seeds, and they're stewarding them, and they're growing them, and then we're able to build partnerships with them and take seeds from them and make them commercially available. And we hope that that's like a mutually beneficial arrangement. We work a lot with the Heritage Seed Library, who are UK-based. They're a charity and they're a seed library, and we work to promote the work that they're doing. And we're also looking into the idea of having a small payment go back to the seed library where we received the seed from in the first place. So we're really looking at how to build partnerships with community seed banks and seed libraries. But within the Seed Sovereignty Programme, we do have a whole community growing forum, and that's where different community projects, including seed libraries and seed banks, can network together and learn from one another. So we just feel like community seed banks are just so important. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Katie. We're going to transition to our Native Seed Search team, and we'll come back to you in about 15 minutes during our discussion.
Thanks.
Folks, please welcome Joel and Helena to the presentation, and I'm going to pull up Joel's slide set here. Okay.
Say, Joel. Thanks, Heron. Thanks, everybody. How close do I have to get to this? Can you hear me now? Pretty close. Okay. I'm going to set myself a little timer here for 7 minutes. I'm going to share a little bit about just quickly who we are and how we grow and what we've been doing in the past with our partner farmer network. As I said, we grow the majority of our seed in-house, and up to this point, most of the partner growers who have been growing with us have been doing it kind of as a passion project. We've had a few growers, one or two I think, who are here this weekend, who have grown with us on contract, but even that, I would say, up to now has been because they care about the work and not because the way that we're doing it is super valuable for them. And there's some reality of that just being we're a nonprofit. We give away a significant portion of our seed at no cost. We did 17,000 seed packets for free going out the door last year, and we're growing old, small lots of seed. So we'll share a little bit about that, but we really want to, in this process, recognize we cannot do this work on our own internally, nor should we. And if we're going to involve other partners in that work, which we want to and need to do, we also need to make sure it's working for them and that they're not bearing the brunt of some of these red flags that Heron mentioned. And sometimes growing for a regeneration on a seed bank is like getting a little basket of a bunch of red flags all in once. And we'll talk about those. So we are Native Seed Search. Helena and I work for Native Seed Search. We are a nonprofit in Tucson, Arizona. The collection holds over 1,800 varieties, accessions of arid-adapted crop seeds from throughout the southwestern United States and northwest Mexico. Those seeds are representative of over 50 different indigenous nations throughout the southwestern United States and northwest Mexico. And about 70% of what's in the collection has a tie to a specific community. So this kind of breaks down where the seeds are coming from and who they're connected to. As we grow out, though we offer seed packets for sale, that's not our primary goal of what we're trying to do as an organization. Our primary goal is to maintain the health of these seeds, their size and population and genetic health, and to make them available and present in the communities that have shaped them historically. For us, as we grow, we start with regeneration samples for the seed bank. That's the first step. Then we make larger quantities of seed that's set aside for free seed access programs, and then really distribution. What shows up in a packet size is kind of the overflow of that work. When we have a good grow out, when there's enough available, that's when it shows up in a seed packet for everyone. So in most cases, our main goal is not, can we get this to a packet size and have a lot of quantity there? It's really kind of the residual overage of us growing to make these seeds healthy, viable, and vibrant, and present in the communities that they're connected to. So that kind of shapes this contract work for us in a different way as well. But again, we don't want growers to be bearing the brunt of, just because we're giving away the seed doesn't mean they need to give away their time and effort and energy. So how can we navigate that together? Why do we want to grow with partner farmers? I should have put in this presentation I did yesterday, show the map of just the range of where these seeds are coming from. Though they are all arid adapted varieties, the range is very wide. We often say from Las Vegas, Nevada to Las Vegas, New Mexico, and Durango, Colorado to Durango, Mexico. That's kind of the bulk of where those seeds are coming from. Those conditions are very, very different. So if we should not and cannot grow all of those seeds in Tucson in the low desert. And so we need partners not only to keep up with 1,800 accessions that need to be regrown in the seed bank and made those seeds available in larger quantities, but also to make sure that adaptions and ongoing growouts are happening as close as possible to the community of origin, ideally in the community of origin, so that that community knowledge can inform selection and ongoing growing as well. In the past, the way that we've done this, we call it our partner farmer program, has had kind of two different ways that it's worked. The vast majority of people that we've partnered with to grow out seeds have done so through what we've called bulk seed exchange. And that really is not, it's not a contract growing situation. It's an exchange of seeds. So the farmer or the grower could access the seed at no cost. We would send it to them. We would cover the shipping costs. They would then provide a portion of the harvest. What we've typically done is that for growers that have a connection, cultural connection to the seed, we ask them to send back a smaller portion, only about 25% of the harvest back to the seed bank to make that publicly available, or through these free seed access programs. And we've asked for a larger harvest, 50% at least, for growers who do not have a cultural connection to the seed. And the reason there is we want the seed to be in the community and to be shared. So somebody who's growing a Hopi variety at Hopi, we want the majority of that seed to stay in that community and be shared and exchanged and eaten and sold and all of those things. We have had contract growing, and I think one of the, what has kind of shaped this conversation for us over the last definitely 4 years, but especially 2 since the last conference and the work of the seed workers organizing, is just realizing we need to work with a smaller number of people who have a higher level of skill in the work, because we're having a lot of energy and education go out the door and not as many seeds come back in the door, or the quality not be where it needed to be always. That's okay. We want to do education. We want to work with people in that learning process, but we also want to steward the seeds and honor the lives of the seeds as well. And so part of that is making sure that they're cared for appropriately and coming back strong, viable, present, healthy. And so the contract growing is closer to what Heron has shared and discussed, and what you all are probably very familiar with, of agreements to purchase a portion of seed and a per pound or per ounce payment for those. One of the things that kind of shaped us relooking at this was updating and increasing the amount of crop data that we were harvesting from our own internal seed growouts, and then really checking that against our partner farmer payments and contracts and seeing, okay, some of these are doing really great. Like maybe we should all quit our jobs and just farm mustard. Like that's a really good number for that contract. And some of these are really lagging behind. Like we wouldn't necessarily, that's not worth it for the amount of energy and investment from the partner. So we wanted to update in those varieties and make sure that they were providing adequate and fair compensation to the grower for the amount of time that they're putting in, but also to just recognize that there are some really specific challenges for growing regeneration seed for a nonprofit. And one of that is some of those pricing that needed to be updated and checked against actual grow out yields. Some of it being these are what Heron said, a red flag. These are unusual varieties that maybe don't have a lot of standard information for them, and we're often growing from older seeds. So some of our partner farmers would grow a distribution grow out of refresh seed, and we had a lot of information about it, and that was all good and going well. But if you're growing for regeneration, internally what we're often doing is planting 4 times. So planting the seed in the beds, seeding 2 more times to fill in gaps if the germination is low, and then also starting transplants. So if we're asking a partner farmer to do that, we want to recognize we're asking you to collect data, we're asking you to do more work to put the seed in the ground, to rogue, to select, to do all of those things. And then I'm going to hand it off to Helena here. I think the biggest thing, this has really been the hinge of the work and where we're trying to go from now, has also just been navigating that some of the growers who are really skilled and really equipped to do this work are also uncomfortable with the idea of commoditizing the seed and making it this thing of my family, my community has a lot of ties to this seed, and we don't want it to just be an exchange of you're sending us this, we're sending it back, you're paying us, we're writing this contract. So how do we navigate moving forward? Really with that as our focal point, for we want to honor the work and the time of the grower and make sure that their livelihood is respected and protected, but how can we also move away from this idea of just seed as commodity? Not that that's ever what it's been for the growers or for us, but it can feel that way in a contract setting. And so some of the ideas from that seed worker organizing group have been really helpful for us as we think, how can we adjust this, meet the needs of the growers, meet the needs of the seed bank and the seeds, and also do it in a different way that respects that relationship and frames it in a different way. So I'll pass it off to Helena there. Hi.
Yeah, but just been. Wait.
Thanks, Dave.
Buddy, can you hear me okay? Okay. So these seeds that Native Seed Search grows out are incredibly important. Native Seed Search was started out of a desire to conserve these culturally important agricultural seeds and reconnect them with their communities of origin. They're a product of generations of farmers, mostly indigenous, selecting and nurturing these seeds for the lands, for their communities. And Native Seed Search and the seeds would not exist without those indigenous communities, farmers, and all the efforts sharing and saving these crops, and that they continue to do today. So it's incredibly important, and we want to also emphasize that in how we grow out the seeds and how we want to work with these farmers with these incredibly important seeds. We're striving to grow out close to 100 accessions of our collection every year, combined with our conservation center and with partner farmers. We have over 1,800 accessions, so it's a big job, and we want to do the best that we can. Our partner farmers help us maintain the supply of seeds, the health, and also the adaptations. The program is being reviewed because we feel like there's not being enough done for these farmers, and we could always do more and always put in more effort. And we want to be in constant communication with the growers and farmers, and to make sure we're understanding what's going on with them in the field, and to make sure that they're getting the feedback that they need and we're communicating with them. We also have been comparing what that looks like with other seed companies and what they're wanting to do, or what the compensation of others is, and we want to be able to match that, so we're not completely showing that we aren't compensating enough for seeds that are on the market, and we want to show how these are more important seeds as well. So we want to be competitive with the pricing. We want to more fairly compensate them and show that through the programs that we have for our partner farmers. Currently, our contract farmers have the partner farmer program, but we have updated to wanting to go to contract growing. We want to provide seeds from the seed bank in our collection and provide information we have on the seed varieties, as well as provide them with seed-saving protocols. We are available for consultation to our seed farmers on these crops throughout the season, and like Joel had said, we are asking them to provide information back on these seeds. A lot of them we have not grown out before and don't have too much information because these are rare and endangered seeds of the Southwest. So we also want to provide compensation for that. So how we changed our partner farmer program, we're piloting this for this year, is that experienced farmers, we're going to go through contract growing, where they're with a capacity of growing more of the accessions, so more than a few accessions. We'll be providing them with a stipend to start with at the beginning of the seasons, and also for those experienced farmers who are growing out more to qualify for grants that we receive. So we'll apply for grants for our partner farmers and see what we can be able to get to them through that program. Because we understand that growing in the Southwest can be difficult, and a lot of our farmers look towards a lot of their costs as putting into equipment or into water. So we recognize that.
Telling that their hand on this. Thanks. How does people carry down?
So also for our program, we want to make sure that seeds aren't a product. And we also want to make space for those that don't want to exchange the seeds for money or don't want to have a monetary involvement with the seeds, especially when the seeds are traditional and mean a lot to the individual farmer, the indigenous farmer. So we have changed to have a seed exchange program. We also want to acknowledge their work in that. So those that wish to partake in that will receive the seeds, and at no cost for returning a portion of the seeds, and we'll provide them with what they need through those grants. They'll qualify for the grants, and we'll also offer them
I think it's back to spec.
I'm sorry, I kind of lost my space. We'll have them work in the program, returning the seeds, and we also thought of offering them, in part, more seeds from our website, the opportunity to get more. So we thought of a $50 gift card. We have a lot of seeds that aren't available normally through, so wildflower seeds, and we have a lot of things that people would like to grow other than what's on the contracts. So we thought that would be a great way to help them out and give them something else that isn't monetary. We try to focus exclusively on our partner farmer relationships more than anything, and we want to be there for them and to show them how much we value the work that they do and all their efforts. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Helena and Joel. Wondering if folks have any clarifying questions before we get into the meat of the matter. Come to a microphone if you can, because that's how things get recorded. Thank you. We'll take, go ahead, Sylvie. Yeah.
My question was, when you do the bulk seed exchange with a grower who doesn't have a cultural connection, do you place stipulations on what they can do with the portion of the seed that they don't return to you?
When we're giving our seeds as seed packets and as to the partner farmers, the only thing that we're asking is that in acceptance of the seeds, that there's no breeding to commodify into large companies, that these seeds are for people and for open pollinated growing. So we don't put any stipulations on them, anything other than that they won't go into big breeding projects.
Oh, yeah.
And just to add one thing to that, we kind of see that partnership of the bulk seed exchange as a way for anybody who's willing to participate in kind of a service capacity in the work to have a seat at the table, that you don't have to have a cultural connection just to access the seed. If you're willing to increase them, make them available, and make them available to more people. But the goal is to really have the partner farmer program be a pipeline for those who are connected to them to continue to access them and to access the resources, and then the bulk seed exchange to really be If you're going to participate, you can still access seed that maybe isn't available to the general public, but you're becoming part of the solution in terms of making them available to others. And that's kind of what that program is anybody participating in the bulk seed exchange without a payment, they would get the gift card, they would get access to the seeds, they would return seed and make them available for others. Partner farmers would in their first year get a stipend at the beginning of the season, then get the payment at the end of the season based on the amount of seed that they produce and the quality of that seed. As they return to the program in the second and third year, their stipend increases and the number of accessions that they can grow increases. And then particularly for indigenous growers within the program, they become available after one successful season of growing out to access these micro grants for equipment and investment into their farm and production.
The deeper discussions, go ahead, sir.
My question real quick got sparked by this one, actually. Are some of these varieties pledged to the Open Seed Source Initiative to keep them in the community rather than like someone using their excess grow out seed to contribute to a company that might monetize and use them for other purposes? And then I was also wondering if your contract growers or partner farmers are eligible for grants through being a partner, or if those are grants that you guys write and extend to their infrastructure.
Two questions. That was hard, but I think we lost track of the first question. Answer the second. Whatever one's on your mind, go ahead and answer it, and we'll circle back to the second one in a minute.
I would just say, and Helena can add to this probably better than I can even, but the whole seed bank exists to not allow that to happen. Our whole seed bank is to promote open access to the seeds and to document that they're in the public domain. So we also keep back older samples of non-viable seeds so that if they were ever patented, we could go back and say this has been in the seed bank for 40 years. It is part of, so we're not necessarily part of the open seed source initiative with the sticker on the packet, but the entire seed bank exists for that purpose largely. Yeah.
And this is for ours. I think if we write grants with them, are they access great?
Yeah. Our partner farmers would have the access to the grants from the contracts after their successful grow outs, and also depending on whether they're coming on as an indigenous grower as well. So just as Joel said, we would be increasing that for successful partner farmers. They could be eligible for higher amounts, and the grants available that we can get will put towards stuff like their equipment or whatever they need for improving and what they can do for grow outs.
Yes.
One example of that would be the last 2 years ago, we applied for the USDA UAIP. We applied for that so the partner farmers didn't have to do all that work. And then we made micro grants available to them that were like just handwritten applications. So that's our goal whenever possible, to take that work on ourselves and make it easy on the partner farmers. But if there's a different opportunity where we apply together, we'll do that sometimes too.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to transition. And
Sir, for just holding one moment. We're going to transition to a conversation where you could ask an individual or all of us here, but also you can ask each other questions if you wish. And what I'd like to do, if Helena and Joel, if you could share a mic, I will try to share a mic with Katie. It's great if it's a question to a specific person or group, because that makes it a little easier to engage Katie. But we'll try if there's sort of a more general, what do we all think question and what we can do about that. Give me just a moment. And Jared will be doing Phil Donahue on this side of the aisle. So he'll be kind of coming to you with the mic for your comment.
This is a question for Helena and Joel. So I live in Napa County, which is Tallahassee land, Mishawaka, Kishawa, Putwin, and other nations are there. and I've formed some relationships with our local Susquehanna Intertribal Council. I wanted to understand better how to continue and deepen those relationships with Indigenous people of my place, and I wanted to know if you had any advice.
I think with any of that, it would be community involvement. I know Native Seed Search has asked that question before. What more can we do? How can we be more involved? And how can we build these relationships with these communities? All we've had to do is open ourselves to more discussions, and also open up and ask, what do you want to see of us? What do you want us to do? And how can we help and also provide? And what can we share with you? And we've done a lot through hosting events at our conservation center, doing teachings, and also going out and doing collaborative events and such. And it's been a rather great success. A lot of people like to ask for us to come to events as well. It's a little overwhelming. But yeah, it's great to get out into communities and to ask, what can I do? What can we do?
Yeah, thank you so much, all of you. My question, actually, there's two questions, and it's basically open for any of you. To me, it seems like in these contracts, I see the grower and the buyer, like trying to share power, find a middle line based on economics. And where does the labor rights stays in this contract? That would be one question, right? Where does the labor rights of the people growing, working for the farmer, where do they stand? Where is their power of these people? It stands in this contract. The other one is where is the cultural approach of a specific plant stands in the contract too. As Native, for example, as Indigenous people, I see, for example, Mexican, the industry called the Mexican Tarragon. Yeah, for us as Yawitli, it's a very sacred plant, and it's very hard to see it as a commercial plant everywhere now. And for us, it put us in disadvantage because we cannot grow the plant unless the plant give us permission to grow it. And a lot of times it comes through dreams, and a specific people, the community gets the dream, gets the permission, and then we can grow it. But other than that, we cannot grow it. There's no way we can do it. So where do those rights come into this contract? Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would love to answer that first and then hand that over. I would say that the current commercial contracts that are used for standard seed companies and seed grower relationships have none of that in context, or very little. There may be some companies that are aware or even conscious to have that conversation, or maybe even exclude commercial production or seeking to produce seed. But this thing you've said is a really both eye-opening and I think great for all of us to hear. To say, okay, it's very easy for us to say, customers want Mexican tarragon, and we just need to get some seed and put it in a packet. And then the question is like, should we be putting it in a packet? That is a question that is not being answered or asked in the general seed trade. So I can tell you both your questions. I think your first question was about the people working on the farms. And of course, in these contracts, it is an owner of a business, owners the farm with the seed buyer, whoever that may be. And the labor part of this is not being considered in terms of fair labor. Now, I will say, I was at a conference last year, which was the ASTA conference. ASTA is like a bigger, sort of the global seed producers. And there was a company in Chile, South Pacific Seeds Chile, that has a fair labor practices certification audit process where they are audited by an organization that comes and assesses, and I don't know for sure whether that's a valid audit or not, but they spoke of this to me and others, said, oh, you're in the organic seed trade. You might be interested to know that we do this. So there are vehicles, whether they're valid or not, I cannot say, but there are vehicles where we can say this seed has been grown at a farm that does fair labor practices. And I will also say that there's, in New York State, there's a group that's related to the NOFA New York group that basically has a whole bunch of stuff about fair labor practices on organic farms, regardless whether it's seed or anything else. So that is in the conversation, but I fully acknowledge has not been had in our seed community. So thank you for both your questions and the fact that we cannot answer them.
I would just add to that too, that for almost all of our partner farmers, the farmer is the labor, that they're on a small enough scale that whoever's signing the contract is also the one planting the seeds and harvesting them, or it's one or two people working as a family or neighbors or something. So I think the scale of that grow out and who's growing, it goes back to who is growing that and who has the opportunity to grow that. We've also had a lot of conversations navigating around which seeds should be grown by who. And part of that community consultation through our seed policy work has been giving people the opportunity to say this seed should not be available to just anyone through the seed packet program, and to have some consultation framework for that conversation to happen. And I think the other thing that we've realized through this is that we need to work on the partner farmer program, but we also, to what Katie said, we need to work upstream of that on where does the education and training go, and how can we be doing, we've seen as we've tried to do more outreach for our staff hiring, for our summer apprenticeships, internships, things like that in communities that are connected to the seed. It's like working many years out to build the relationships, to let people know about the opportunities, to make the opportunity funded in such a way that it can be available to everybody, and then to have the goal that people who are coming in for training, to do a tour, have the opportunity to work, to apprentice, to learn, and then that would have a pathway into working as a contract grower, so that the contract growers are representing the seeds that they've worked with. And I think that's a really long-term scope to build back to that. But I think, to your point, that has to be what we're moving towards and what we're prioritizing on each of those levels.
I'm sorry. I'm also going to add that we do separate our seeds in a way that we have our native access seeds, so indigenous only access seeds, and that extends into our partner farmer grow outs as well. So indigenous growers will have more access to seeds, and we want to make sure that culturally sensitive seeds are grown by our indigenous growers.
It may be that there are folks that you'll look in a seed catalog and it may give the origin point or a cultural or community origin point for a specific variety. But that is not the same necessarily, to your point, sir, of asking permission to be able to offer that commercially. So this disconnect in this conversation between cultures and communities of origin and commercialization, it's one thing to attribute, say, from X country or from X community or X village. That doesn't necessarily reflect permission. And so those are, I think, maybe in our community we have conflated attribution and permission. And that is something maybe we need to, not just maybe, we need to reassess. Cody.
Yeah, I own a very small little regional seed company with a tiny little seed production side, and we've been actively thinking about the language we're using to describe these agreements. I'm wondering, I guess specifically Katie and Heron, we've been trying to look at the language of an agreement to buy versus a contract to buy, and what that means and how that better represents the actual relationship between these two entities. And if you have any thoughts on that or, additional input, I'd be interested.
But go with this. Just a second. Let me figure this out. Katie, are you with us?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure that I really have a lot to add on this point, other than that I think it is a really interesting point to make around language. And I guess in the UK, with the seed sovereignty program, we're working with what is quite a grassroots movement for seed sovereignty. And a lot of that is like based on trust, it's based on in-person relationships, it's based on this idea that we all have this common aim to kind of increase seed sovereignty. And it is funny when you introduce these kind of legal terms into that kind of movement, because I think, like I tried to say in my presentation, it's a strange one where it's like, we want contracts, we want fairness, we want clarity, we want transparency, but what does the introduction of that kind of legal language do to those in-person relationships that we have? And I don't think I really have the answer, but personally I much prefer the term agreement. And personally I find a lot of the legal jargon around contracts kind of a little bit alienating, because like I said in my presentation, like, seeds are so much more than a product, and this kind of legal language is kind of reducing them down to this idea that they're a product. But at the same time, you know, we are working with growers who need to sell these seeds and they need to earn income from selling them, and so the contract is also really important. So I think I have like really mixed feelings about that, and I don't know if that's a helpful comment.
Very helpful. It's a mixed feelings agreement.
Hi, this is a question. Hey. This is a question for Katie. It's kind of strangely technical in the legal side. We're trying to get some fiberflax seed back into Scotland, and we happen to have old varieties that we grew out that we have a large enough quantity to send back, but we were trying to get it into Scotland. So and they're not registered on the UK like list of registered plants, and so there's a very high bar to do this. So does she know of a way to, I guess with more like a research exemption of some sort, to be able to bring crops back in that were there originally, but they don't have anymore, but we like that kind of exchange in a way? Yeah.
Katie, did you hear the first part of that?
Yeah, I heard that question. Yeah, and I wish I had a really great answer for you. Yeah, here in the UK, yeah, you're correct. Varieties have to be registered on the national list to be legal to be sold or shared within the UK. Although all of the growers that we work with, and even commercial growers, do sell and exchange varieties that are not on the national list. And this is something that DEFRA, our government, are not actually enforcing. So in terms of the variety being listed on the national list, technically it's illegal if it's not on the list, but it's something the government isn't enforcing. And they're aware that a lot of seed companies are sharing and selling seeds which aren't on the national list. So in terms of the variety listing, you can probably get away with it. But importing seeds into the UK is very difficult, yeah, and they require phytosanitary certificates. And it's quite hard to get them through customs. So yeah, it's tricky, and this is a big problem for us here in the UK. Actually, during COVID, at the same time as COVID, we also Brexit, so we left Europe, left the EU in the UK. So we had this huge problem of people no longer being able to import seeds easily. And obviously, in the long term, we'd love to be growing them all in the UK and not need to import seeds. But suddenly in 2020, we found like huge problems with people accessing seeds because of this importing issue. So I wish I could tell you how to easily do it, but I can't. Sorry.
So we've got just a few minutes, and we'd love to take maybe 2 more questions or comments, thoughts.
Hi. My question is about seed quality in contracting, and Heron, I think you're probably the right person for this question. I heard you say that quality is specified to certain levels in the contract, and I'm curious what experiences there have been with incentivizing, extra high seed quality. Yeah, I guess it could take the form of premiums or some other program to proactively encourage that. And I guess the second part of the question is, what have you seen as kind of the more nuanced version of what seed quality even means in a way that's measurable to both parties?
Yeah, there's definitely contracts where companies have created incentives for delivering seed above a certain percentage point. And I think the main thing I would recommend is folks beginning to really abandon the USDA federal minimum germ as something you're trying to deliver to, and trying to set an internal standard both for your farm, but also for your seed as a seed buyer, where you're saying, we want seed that's not 75% germ, we want seed that's 85% germ or 88% germ, and then incentivize for seed that comes in over that. So what this does is shifts the intent away from volume a bit. So a grower is incentivized to do maybe more cleaning, possibly, but also is just rewarded for higher seed quality, because, when you sell seeds, obviously seed coming in at 93% versus 83% probably has quite a bit more shelf life, and customer satisfaction is going to be higher. So you come into that space with, let's say it's a contract that reflects a 2-year supply for the seed buyer for their commercial business. With a 93% germ, it's very likely you're going to have that seed all the way through that 2-year supply and possibly beyond, depending on the volume. But if it's an 83%, maybe not. And so that reflection of what you're being given and what this agreement is based upon is, I think quality should be, in my opinion, a linchpin of what we're doing in the small scale seed businesses. And that's how we probably should be framing what we have to offer. And I think a lot of us intend that, and language in contracts can reflect that, particularly with these seed germination incentives. Overall, I think that's the easiest way to have those conversations. But drying, moisture content, there's a lot in our community to learn, but also to share about how each of us in our regions approach drying. I approach it very differently in the Northeast than maybe someone in the Northwest. But you can have high germing seed and it can be wet. So it doesn't really matter. The germination is one piece of seed quality. I think the other part of seed quality is this true to typeness element, where we're really promising somebody something in the packet when they get it as a purchaser. And so, as we do our work, that part of it is, it's really key. So how we frame our work, what standards we bring to ourselves, what standards we bring to our agreements, a lot of that is transferred in the stock seed, and a lot of it is reflected in isolation distances. So those types of elements of really having those conversations about, let's talk about this variety, and let's be sure that we're starting with stock seed that's functional and gives everybody a better chance for a better outcome. There's a lot of nuances to this, but those are my short comments. One more question, possibly, maybe?
That I've already asked. There was nobody else here. Okay. So I have indigenous connections in my family. These are not because of who I am recorded. And so I've had some hesitation and internal confusion and reaction to that fact. And I would like if Helena or Joel could address what they might have encountered with people coming forth as a potential partner, as an indigenous seed grower, and how, from your side, trying to assess that.
So your question, I'm sorry, trying to understand is, what on our side are we doing to try to assess?
What do you ask?
What do I?
For partners, the indigenous heritage, so that you see saying having conversations, arguing with them, talk to these ways.
No, we don't require any documentation. We want to leave it open to people. We don't want them to feel uncomfortable about it, and we don't want to be asking for those kinds of things because there are a lot of indigenous communities that aren't nationally recognized. There's people that are from outside of what would be normally considered indigenous. Some of those lines can be arbitrary to a lot of people who consider themselves as indigenous. So we want to keep that open to the person to disclose to us that they are indigenous affiliated. So on all our forms and all our questions, it'll just ask you for an association, whether you consider yourself indigenous. There's people who can qualify that don't quite consider themselves indigenous, and we want to respect that. It's not something that we decide ourselves, but we also want to make sure that that's reflected in how we respect people.
Thank you all for being here today. I think takeaway is let's continue talking about these things that we often don't talk about. Both the connection for our love of the seed, our love of each other, but also how we work financially and how we work in agreement with each other and build mutual trust and build mutual community. We all know there's been situations where people have not had positive experiences in seed exchange or seed purchase agreements, and we want to learn from those as a community rather than hide them. I think that's a real key to how we might continue talking. So please take this conversation with you and don't be afraid to talk about these things. I think these are the places where I think sometimes we have the hushed voice in the corner, and we need to create diplomatic and also respectful ways to talk about these things openly so we can build some more tools. And I think to the gentleman's question about permissions and communities of origin, I would really appreciate if you would stay after and touch base, because I think that's work that needs to start. So thank you all for being here. And please thank our speakers, our team for Native Seed Search, and Katie and you. Like, they both are these folks are way more professional than me, have done an amazing job, and I so appreciate their time and energy. And Katie being here on the phone, I'll pull her up one more time for a raucous goodbye. Katie.
Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for bearing with me. It's the evening time for me, so I was going to say I wish we could all go for a drink together, but of course it's the morning for you, so I hope you enjoy your coffee break. Yeah.
I need a break and a drink, so we're good.